I hope you can feel us, and you're definitely about to hang out with us.
Just do the things that make you feel good in life.
Is it helpful? Is it hurtful? Or is it going to make people laugh?
How would you identify yourself?
Trusting yourself enough to put trust in strangers.
It's a process, like everything else.
Welcome to another episode of Human to Human. We got my boy Ron Bass in the building. Look how handsome he is. Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
Such a gracious person. Such a gracious person. And so I'm really excited to get into today's conversation because, I mean, to me, you exemplify self-love while still doing the work and still having self-awareness with that. And that's like one of my favorite things about you. And I think that's really important during this time, if not now more than ever, to just talk through that, the processes we're both going through, the discoveries we're feeling, all of those things that make us even more human and connect our humanity in a better way. So thanks for coming on.
Not to cut you off, and I'd be remiss if I didn't do it, but for the fact that you see that in me, I don't take it lightly.
Mm-hmm.
It is, when I say an honor for, to grow up in a household with love, I was surrounded by love, and for that to be the thing that some people see in me, it's very touching because I believe that love is the answer to so many things. And just to be associated with that, if for someone to think of me and think of those things, it's a true honor for me. So I know that I didn't want to go down the line and not just say thank you for seeing me in that light, for always seeing me in that light. And I just want to reiterate that I'm just a reflection of those that are in my life, positive mirror image. So the things that you see in me is just reflection to you. So thank you for that. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just wanted to make that clear that thank you for seeing me in that light. And I see you that way as well.
That means a lot. That means a lot. And I totally, I appreciate that you did that, because I think, again, sometimes we forget that the people that surround you are a reflection of you. And so what you're working on, the people around you are working on, when you guys click in that way, honestly, like we've been friends for what, 2-3 years, like maybe 3 years, 4 years?
Feels like longer.
I know. I was like
connection. And I don't even, has it been 2 years? I've always known of you, but I think we finally connected maybe 2-3 years ago, but it definitely feels like eons, like we, because we just kind of got in. Most people, you kind of warm up. Yeah. It was just like our hearts were like, oh, friends, there it is.
Let's do it. I have to tell you that there was a moment that just, even though we were already past solidified as this is my friend, but there was just a moment where I realized how much you pay attention. It was last year at Essence Fest, and we were all walking after this great concert, and we're like, okay, cool, let's go to the Ace Hotel, let's have a good time. And I said the phrase a lot when things were funny. I'm like, oh my God, I'm dead. Oh my God, I'm dead. And Ron pulled me aside and was like, Stace, you're not dead. You're alive. You're so alive. I don't want you. And I was like, he paused me in the middle of it wasn't Bourbon Street, but it could have been. It was just like, I had never had that experience where your friend just paid attention in that way and was like, you are not dead. You are so alive. And I know you're just kidding. And I hope you don't think this is the wrong way. And I was like,
I know.
This is
because sometimes you have to meet people with that. I've heard that. And sometimes it's, to be honest, it kind of makes me cringe sometimes, especially when I can see the light and I see literally love flowing out of you through your smile, through your radiance. So to hear some words, even though I know that you don't mean it in literal sense, but I'm very big on the words that we profess is so powerful. So to see someone that I'm feeling this love around, I'm happy. We were in such a joyous moment. We had just left. We were on a natural high from music and love and communion. And I know we were just joking, but when you said that, it was like, wait, ouch. I'm feeling so much life from her, and for her to hear her say that. So it was just let me just put it out there, let her receive it and take it how she sees fit. But at least I know that I just wanted to present this with her. I'm such a beautiful person inside and out, and I just wanted to meet you with that. It was just called over me, and I was like, what she decides to do with it is on her. I won't force it on her. Let me just translate this message, and you received it in the best way possible. But
isn't that crazy though? Because even the message and how we translate these type of things to our friends, to our family members, when we're trying to bring a new light and we're like, okay, I'm not actually sure you're going to take it, but I'm going to be willing to just drop it here. And then, you can't judge how someone picks it up because you don't know where people are. But it's interesting when somebody's like, I reject that. And you mean this and you mean that. Cause I get that too. I have done that. We've done that. And then when someone's like, oh, I really want to consider that, it's just interesting what that process is like to get there, to consider.
Yeah, sometimes it's like a constant eggshell walk, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a reflection of our people, and it's not in a negative way. It's just kind of basically the programming that a lot of times we believe that when you give someone that type of advice, or you feel moved to talk to them that way, it's almost like, do you think you're better than me? Do you think I was, because we just kind of have that, and it's not a bad thing. It's not, we just kind of inherit that through programming, through, you know, oppression, through abuse, mental, and all those things. So it's like, sometimes you just got to tiptoe, even with my own family. It's like, hey guys, I don't really know. And, you know, you don't want to be that one, like, oh, you always think, or I'm not there. So it definitely comes from a place of love and good intentions, but sometimes you just got to know when to do it.
I definitely want to get into that soon, but I want to start at the beginning of your journey. Just for those who don't know you, Ron is an incredible artist. He's a visual artist. He's a painter. He's one of those people who lives life in color, is how I describe it. And so I kind of want to get a little bit of the beginning of how you became to commit yourself to that type of life, and, you know, living life of art as well as being an artist.
Yeah. So for me, the foundation of my art, of course, started as a child. I had two loving parents that basically pushed me into different aspects of arts to find out where I felt safe, you know, through dance, through sports, music, and actual physical art of crafts and painting and things of that nature, sculpture and building. So as a kid, it was in me, but I gravitated towards sports up until I was about 17. Senior year in high school, going into college, I knew that basketball really just didn't fulfill me as much as I thought it did. And I decided, like, I just wanted to see what life else had to offer. And I remember my first year in college was when I lost my mom. And 3 years after that, I lost my dad. So pretty young, before I was 23, lost both my parents. And the true artist, because I didn't really know how to express myself verbally. And I was really in a dark place. Just a sad soul, you know, your two most important people in your life are no longer with you. How do you navigate? I think they did a good job of preparing me for future moments as a young man, but still protected me from life as we know it. So there was a lot of things that I didn't know, and there was things that I did know. But this was the best way that they decided to raise me, and I'm grateful for it. But as an artist, I was through all that pain and just misunderstanding and trying to navigate through life, I chose to use color and just abstract objects and things of that nature to express myself, because it was a way for me to hide behind the things that I couldn't say or how I truly felt, where I would even find it very refreshing to take a color, give it meaning, paint it in such a way or add it in such a way where you may not never know. And it was almost like, for me, well, at least I got it out. It's not direct. And then when I realized that other people were going through things as well, because, you know, you're so self-absorbed in your own things that you forget that other people simultaneously is going through their own thing. And I remember, as I was able to come to a point to release and share my hurt and pain and story, that others gravitated towards it for their own personal reasons. And I even remember when some people be like, oh, I love how you did this, and this must have meant this. And I'm like, actually, no, but I love that you got that.
Right.
So it was almost like I was put in a place. It's like, okay, I know what this is doing for me, but use me to tell this story for it to move someone else. And to be a facilitator of that, still to this day, is something that blows my mind every single time someone says, like, oh, I love this piece because, or my child loved this piece. To be the author in that story, or to co-author because these people have a story as well. It's just so, like, essentially beautiful that it's sometimes hard to put into words. So going back to how I started, it was basically, you know, that, like, as an artist, just being able to use my art to speak when my mouth or I couldn't physically get the words out. And I'm usually not a person that's left speechless, but with something like that, I just didn't know. And it's still, I'm still learning. I stopped counting years ago, which was part of my healing. If I had to think really quick, maybe, I know it's 15 plus years, but I just, you know, I had to let go of the numbers game, because even that was part of the trauma.
Absolutely.
So on the other side of that, it's like, it's not that you have to basically come to terms with telling yourself that not memorizing numbers and dates doesn't mean that you love them less, because it's like a guilt thing.
Absolutely.
Letting all that go, and realizing that you serve a bigger purpose. You know what I mean? So that was basically the foundation of me as an artist, and using color and life and to be able to speak to people because it evoked an emotion. And to be a part of that is something that I always want to be in that particular vehicle. It's like, come on in, take a ride.
That's such a special gift. And I'm so grateful to the life that your parents lived, where they introduced you to that. They allowed you to play in it. And I feel like they didn't hinder right or wrong in that space, in the artist space, that they were just like, it is what it is. And what you see it as is what it is, which is very, very special. So I'm grateful to them. And thank you for sharing that and like that process, because like the connection to art is so deep, and the fact that like you allow yourself to see even other people's reaction to your stuff is like, that's a full 360 healing moment, in my opinion. So yeah. What color means the most to you?
Immediately over the last few years, black is the color that means the most to me. Just thinking of like the history of it, the richness of it, and then also just the juxtaposition on the negative connotation that is perceived by people outside of the race. And I know a lot of people are afraid to always bring things to race, but it's a conversation that a lot of people don't like to have.
Right.
And then I feel like if it was more conversations about it, maybe we would be at a different place and time. But a color that represents the most for me is black. It's just the strength in it, the pride. Even just step away from, I guess, even all the social and powerful meanings. When on canvas, that color, just when it's around other colors, for me, even though I play with a lot of colors, I'm always outlining in black. There's something about it that, if you just take, like, let's say you take reds, whites, blues, browns, right? And you just go around it with black, it just brings everything together. And that's so, like, there's a hidden message in that. Even in the people, we're constant, like, we are the true essence of human civilization. So like, even on a canvas, taking those colors and me outlining black, it always pulls things together in the most beautiful way. So that's the first color that comes to mind, and that I'm just moved by and just so happy to be a part of, both racially and just as an artist.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you're right. I think all of us are afraid of race in some way. I think that, this time, especially during, well, not especially, because we've experienced this before, if you were paying attention, if you're Black, if this, but obviously there was a big amplify around George Floyd's death, because it was probably one of the most vivid I've seen, and most of us have seen and experienced. And I just feel like when we were all in that moment of, okay, we watched this, we cannot take this back. We know what we just saw. It allowed for this, okay, if we don't have the conversation now, we're always going to end up back here. Like, there's no more choices. And even as Black people, I've been having a lot of accountability and self-awareness within myself of, how did I shrink myself to be a part of white supremacy? How did I shrink myself to be a part of this culture? When did I believe that one thing was more important than the other? When did I tell myself that I had to straighten my hair because this person told me I should? Like, really going through that, because all of that's connected. And, it's cool to be worried about white people and, like, yeah, I'm mad at them too and all that. But I'm trying to make sure we're rich and we're healthy and we're safe and we are teaching and growing and learning and relearning. And so for you, as a Black man who, it's innate for us to carry, for Black people, it's innate for us to carry a burden. And then you keep breaking that down, and how you were raised and where you were raised. And so as a Black man, what burdens that even have attached to your identity have you worked on shedding, and which ones are you still working on?
That's a great question, because it makes me think. It's almost like a checklist, and I think the only area, because I'm so in your face proud to be Black in any room, I will definitely I have speaking out or if I feel a way or someone is, I'm definitely not shy in those areas. But I will say when it comes to business practices, I've sometimes more so went into it with let me be considerate how everyone might feel about this rather than just, and I think that I've changed since then. I've been more like not so eager just be like, oh, when I make this, I want everybody to love it. My concern right now is how would my people feel?
Right.
Anyone else secondary, because when you look back at it, for me, having a product or building a brand at the very beginning, and it's going to probably be to my dying day, has always been my people who have been supportive in the forefront. So it's like, it's not that I am telling anybody else this isn't for you, but it's like, for me as a creative, I have to make sure that my people are good, how they feel about this first before anything. And I guess to answer your question, that would be the only, I guess I'm not perfect, but the only thing that kind of comes to mind when it's like checking myself and realizing what have I done, what am I doing? It's like business practices, because, when you do have a business, you do want basically everybody to feel like, okay, they could relate. Especially for me, it's always been about love, peace, and light. That's what I was raised around. And it's like going forward, especially over the last few years, I realized that I had to, I guess I was just thinking too much, and it was like, how could I just make sure that I care for minds first, that everybody's good, let's speak amongst each other. How does this make us feel? What's the environment here? And then anything outward, it's like, okay, then, it's open. So I guess that would be the thing that I had to check myself or work on, that I could think of.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I think, like I said, the more we are aware of how this has also affected us in so many different ways, the more we are allowing ourselves to actually stand taller and taller and taller. But if we are not willing to ask ourselves the questions, then here we are. So obviously you've talked about spirituality. Personally, you and I have really man, we have so many more conversations to go, but I've always really admired how open and willing you were to explore your spirituality. I think that's something that we're also afraid to do.
Yes.
I don't know, maybe, well, you said so how do you feel like people are afraid to ask themselves the questions of just spirituality?
Yeah, for sure. Because for me it all goes back to, and like you said, it was like learning, unlearning, and just finding what that means to you. I think a lot of times with just things in life, we have this idea that is presented to us, and it's like, if you don't go with this idea that I gave you, you're against it. You are, it's like, especially if you give me the mind and the freedom to think. And it's not that, it'd be a different conversation if I'm like, hey, you're wrong. It's a whole different conversation. I just get to the point where this allow me to gravitate and to think freely. And if the outcome is still love, especially for thy brother and sister, does it really matter if I am not, I guess, following to a T your idea of what spirituality looks like? If I am still meeting people with love and light, if I am still being, a vessel of good, how important is it because I may not enter a building on Sunday at 9 a.m. or open the book that, not saying I'm against those things. What if just let's leave room for people who might find other means to spread the message? And that's basically my thing. I think we have come into a place where, like I said, is just, here, this is how it's supposed to be. Don't touch it. Don't dare think against or around it. This is how you're supposed to, and it causes so much conflict within families, within friendships, relationships, because it's this idea that it just has to be one way. And that's what a lot of things in life. You're supposed to, be in a relationship one way. Like, it's just, love. And when you hear these other things, it's like, well, no, that don't go that way. And it's like, at the end of the day, if no one's being harmed, or it's like, why not? If it's just for that individual or those people, maybe be open to them. It doesn't hurt you that they're not, unless it was, hey, you're doing this and the outcome is tearing the world apart.
Right.
Not by personal feelings, literally like you're doing something wrong, and it's basically going against humanity, and the forward progression on that positivity plane. We can have those conversations, but I don't know. It's always been an interesting thing for me, especially growing up. My dad, Southern Baptist, and I love that aspect of life, growing up and seeing, how devoted one could be to, the word and a practice and a belief. And it's beautiful. Then I also saw the flip side of how painful it could be for some individuals just for the simple mistakes of life, and how one might, really badger themselves for being human. It's not, it's like, it's a difference between like, okay, wrong, you're doing wrong, but it's like some things that I'm hearing is like, hey, be more kind to yourself. Like, I don't think that the loving entity that I guess we all know, or as the creator, would be that harsh in nature that, hey, you have bad thoughts, this is it. It's like, wait, but then you're saying love, like it was confusing.
Sure. He's like, I was just confused. I'm confused.
So for me to not be as confused, I'm like, hey, I know what love is. I know what I guess considered to do the right thing is. I'm going to stick to this and what this makes me feel like. I'm not going to tell anybody that they shouldn't do what they gravitate towards to. Just allow me to be me, in my own free spiritual way. And that's what I find comfortable. If you don't, that's on you, not on me, because I'm going to be well. I'm to a point and place in my life where I'm at peace with a lot of things within. Of course, what's going on around me, I am not at peace, which is a personal conflict, because to be, to do the work to be whole inside, but to not to reflect
the world
you live in. It's and I think a lot of people don't even realize that as Black people, that's something, because it's like, okay, let me do the work to get through the trauma and the oppression and all these things. So you get to a place and then you look around and you're like, oh, and it's like a guilt thing, because you did it, and it's like, but so many people are suffering. Should I be in this place of like
such a catch-22? It's such a catch-22. You want to be healthy, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but you want to be healthy.
No, it's perfect.
But then the world is so unhealthy, and you're like, okay, should I be unhealthy so that do I be unhealthy with the world, or do I bring more people up to be healthy? Which obviously that's more of the answer, but then there's such a battle there, because there's a lot of triggers to the trauma, and you could be personally healthy, and then the world's like, hey, we're about to do something else, and you're like, okay, this is getting. I personally have described being on a seesaw for the past 6 months.
I've said roller coaster, so same difference.
Yes, just constantly trying to figure that out. So, I mean, have you found the middle ground there? Because we're both empaths, we both feel heavily. We are also willing to have our self-love and self-journey, but still, integrate with the world. So like, what's the middle ground?
Yeah, I'm searching. I've gotten to a place, but I don't think I'm there yet as far as a middle ground, because for me it's either I've been here. Right. There's moments through, at least for me, running. I've been running a lot more, working out. Meditation has gotten me closer there, but it's like with a lot of those things, it's very like temporary.
It's
it's like you do it, you feel in a moment, few hours, and then not even going to social media. You ask someone like, oh, what's up? How you doing? And you just like, oh, you're reminded.
Yeah.
Or, you in your own thoughts, you're feeling good, you're going, you're like, oh, what's today's date? And you're like, oh, wait, it's July. You're like, wait, how many days since Breonna Taylor murderers is not arrested? It's like all these just things just like pop up, and it just takes you there. So it's like I get close, but it's like so like I said, temporary. And I'm at the point now trying to find ways to like new adventures mentally and physically. And it's like, then you think of like, for me, it's like I'm so used to like traveling and using that as a mental escape. But of course, with the world pandemic, you can't really do that. So it's like finding out ways where I can at least maybe get some of that while trying to be safe and trying to adhere to whatever they're telling us, because even with that, it's like, well, you told me this one day, and it's like so much. And I feel first for my people, because I know I'm feeling it. And it's like, I just feel for us, because it's like we have so much, and this is current, right?
Right.
We haven't even, there's so many layers, you know what I mean? From
Oh.
things 2-3 years ago, from birth, from, you know, relationships, from just life, you know, and it's so much, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
For
Like
those
you
who are
said,
listening to
empath.
that part, I hope that you can, if you can relate, this is the part that makes us human, right? And like, these are the things we have to, when we say be kind to yourself, this right here was an example of like, even though we're talking through it, even though we're saying, gosh, it's so much, it's so heavy, we're still going to make the choice, or I hope that we make the choice to be kind to ourselves and to give ourselves grace, because no one of us have the answer. That's why I wanted to have these continuous conversations with fellow humans that I feel like are looking around, paying attention, doing the work, but loving on the world at the same time, and willing to be like, okay, I can't solve everything, but in this pocket I can solve this, and then you could take that pocket and go over there. But you know what I'm saying? So we have to be, because even as you're saying that, I'm like, this was me all week. Like, all of that was me all week. And so I'm like, what is the answer? Like, I don't know. I don't know exactly. So
And you know, it's like, I've done a great deal of tremendous work to get through anxiety that I've dealt with, and I'm at a great place with it now, and I pat myself on the back. But there's still, I think, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody, but for me, overcoming anxiety, there's still a small portion, which probably is part of it, where you realize that the steps of going back is way more closer than the years of work that you put in to get away from it. So that part that you say, will there ever be a thing? Like, I have to stop myself from going deep into that, because I'm like, that's an anxiety alert waiting to happen. Because if you try, like, if for me, giving it too much thought, it's scary, because it's like, wait, really, is it? Because I look at it like our forefathers that's been fighting this same fight, right? And it's like, well, where we are today, while there have been tremendous, you know, change and strides, bit by bit, you and I speaking right now on, you know, this particular technology, and to be able to do that compared to back then, of course, we have had some major, but to the overall picture, just to be accepted and to be equal, to seen equal, that fight. And it's like, how long has this been going on?
Yes.
And is it like, to think that somehow in this lifetime while you're living, this is going to be the time where, you know, but as you get older and you start seeing different things, and you turn the news and you're like, wait, they're still doing that in broad daylight. And it's like, wait, you know, Black women are still being attacked, or like underpaid, all these different things. And it's like, how are we still here, right? And then you think, will this ever in your lifetime, or for your, you know? And sometimes for me, that can, like, I'm like, man, that could be a trigger. So I have to jump in and jump out piece by piece, because the reality of what that could be is tough.
It's hard. It's hard to, you know, to really realize all the stills. Are we still here? Is that still happening? Is that still going on? People still do that? Like, I've had a lot of those epiphanies, and some have been met with challenge of, you can't be surprised that stuff is happening. That's also part of the privilege. And then some of it's like, okay, that is surprising, and damn, we got to figure out what to do there and how to contribute. So you talked about, I don't know if you mind, but could you share some discoveries or things that have helped you get out of anxiety? Because that is major. And I think it's more major because we're all talking about it. I think we've all experienced it, but we're just keeping it out in the open now. So what are some things that have helped you kind of heal from that?
So there's a practice that I do, and it sounds so cliche, but I literally sometimes will talk to myself in the mirror. Something about seeing myself, prep myself up, tell myself how loving, how beautiful, how I see myself. It's different when you tell me, it fulfills me. It does a great thing when people that I love, my family. But then what about myself? So I know it's like a third person kind of thing, weird kind of thing, like sounds like, but literally look in the mirror to see my body react to being told I love you. It's like, do you know what that looks like?
Yeah.
Some people may never know, like when a loved one tells them they love you, what does your body do? Does your eye rise? Do you smirk? How do you feel? What does that look like? So for me, restoring love within myself, it gave me a certain power to be able to conquer certain traumas. So even though it's not directly related, I had to build myself up to let myself know you are worthy of all great things. You are worthy to get through this. You have to see yourself and believe in that you can get through these things. So that's where it started. Conversations in the mirror that I still have. If I'm going through something, I'm looking in the mirror and I'm like, you got this. Like, you got to believe. And it's like the same talks that I would give to friends. It's, you know, the classic thing, practice what you preach. It's like literally pouring those words into myself. And you know, it helps me tremendously. So amongst with those things, then I have meditation and prayer. The reason why I say I'm separate, some people, for them it's the same, but for me, when I'm meditating, it's more so being still, listening to my body and my breathing, the pattern of it, because again, just wanting to be one with all things that creates the energy inside of me, being able to hear that, what that sounds like,
Right.
And not taking it for granted, quieting out the noise around me, and around me.
Right.
There's a difference of prayer where when I'm in prayer, you know, manifesting and asking for the things that I might, you know, see fit for others and myself. So for me, it's two different things. One is more of a call of action. The other is more of a to be still and silent. Those are some things that help me. Also, writing. Seeing, not only speaking those words, but seeing some of the things on paper as like accomplishments, able to look down on it. And I used to think it was a time where I'm like, oh, technology is so great. Let me just write it in my notes on my phone. For some reason, it doesn't do the same thing for me.
Right.
Someone else it might. But for me, notes have its purpose, but like something about the pen or a pencil going across the page and seeing the words form and then being able to live it, it to me, it traces in my mind. And I think that goes back to like, this is kind of off topic, but in school, I was a good student because I had a memory where, let's just say if the answer was 45, I would literally do like this with my eyes, blink twice. I would take a picture of it written down.
Right.
And that's how I'll remember where to place it. So even in today's times, like when I write down affirmations and things that I want to conquer, those things are forever etched in my mind. It doesn't work the same way for some reason with technology in my notes. Like I can write powerful things, but it just doesn't retain the same way.
Right.
So for me, like I said, to get through the anxiety was like those talks in the mirror, meditation, prayer, and then just writing things out. And then like through the self-help, you realize like what work needs to be done and what is beneficial to you. 'Cause I think everyone has a different story. And that's why I'm like sometimes very like keen on how I tell someone, like, because most people are like, well, what did you do? And might want to do the same thing. And it's like, you kind of have to find what works for you. Just like cooking.
Yeah.
I can tell you how to make a vegan burger, but my spices, you might not like it.
Right.
But then if you like, well, I like onion powder, so you add onion powder, now it's the best burger for you. You know, and it's the same way. Like you got to know, find your thing. Maybe you have the umbrella and like under it is your own thing, you know, and that's what I encourage people to do. But those are the things that help me with anxiety.
I love that. I think we have to be like, we have to do our best to take those things seriously. I think we always say, and I'm talking to myself too, because especially with affirmations, I always say like, okay, I'll write them down tomorrow. And something about like, it's like, I feel scared to like write down this amazing stuff about myself. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's like the thing I was confronting. I was like, why are you being weird? Like, just say great stuff about yourself. Like, stop being weird. But I felt like I was always putting it on the back burner. Like, it's okay. You know, okay, good morning. Okay, God, we love you. Okay, well, one nice thing, move on. But it's not written down. It's not something I can see. It's not repeated. It's like, that's So that's something that I have been working on, and something I'm like, okay, add this into your routine. Like it's important, like it's special, like it's actually going to be a part of changing and manifesting those things you want, because I don't know if there's an intimidation there beforehand, or like I don't know, that's kind of what I'm asking myself now. It's like, what's stopping you from this? Because I also, we all transition from, I'm a notes person. I think it does work for me. So I'm very like, everything I write down, I retain in a weird way. Like I like see it as a list, and I'm like, okay, cool. That works. So what are the other things that work? And just adding to that. But I say all that to say that that self-love journey, that journey of shedding, we never give ourselves time to do it. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Please do it. Like, take the time to do it, even within what's happening in the world.
And understanding that, like, it's again the programming somewhere along the way. Not even there's probably maybe you can't even trace it to a physical person or moment. Something you may have seen, something that just kind of happened where you were told that loving yourself and professing how amazing you are is like bad. And I tell people all the time,
self-centered.
Right. There's a difference between selfish and self-first. And a lot of times people will make you feel like the things that you're doing where you're putting self first is like you're selfish. And it's like, no, I need to let myself know how amazing I feel I am. I need to also feel that, you know what I mean? And it was, again, programming, things that we seen growing up as kids, TV shows, commercials. Our parents went through the same thing. So even sometimes they might sign us just like, don't go around thinking you cute, or things that we just might say. And it's like, but why not? Like, I want to feel beautiful. Like I feel that I'm strong, and it's just things that we were taught. And again, unlearning so many things that were placed on us amongst all the other things that the world throws at us today. That's why, like, it baffles me when people, non-people of color, try to have this, I guess, this story that we all have this opportunity. It's like, there's no privilege, just like you have this. And it's like, you don't understand that based on what the foundation of my people was inherited in me, the obstacles that I have to even go through to get to the decision to where you think that we meet. It's not just like I wake up and I'm like, oh yeah, I choose to go. You don't even know the multiple of things that I have to get to before, and you don't see it. So a lot of times it's like you're speaking on something that you never will live or never understand.
Never gonna
like,
experience.
How dare you? Like, how dare you? You have no clue. And it's weird to me because, like, I know because the same rule will apply to when, someone is abused, or, and I'll say, like, not to, again, not race card, but when, you hear stories of like white women who are abused, or children, they understand that trauma comes with that. And they are very, very open and understanding. But it's like when we tell you, hey, 400 years of oppression of our people, and then there's, from systematic and systemic issues and things that we deal with as a people, this is a real thing. Why do you not see that we would be, dealing with it? Like, how it's almost like you don't want to, because in other ways you have. In other ways, you've definitely showed me that you can be compassionate to someone that's going through something, because you showed me that. There's programs, there's organizations, you've donated, you've made institutions for it. Why do you not see that these people, my people, are going through that and are still going through that? So to think that we're at this even keel playing field, it's like, it blows my mind. It's like, are you playing dumb? It's like, you want to believe that, and it's just not true.
I think that what I've been learning about why white people try to take themselves out of the equation is all of those things you mentioned, giving money, checking in, whatever, all those, that list, none of it makes you look back at yourself. And I think a lot of those things is, if Ron is telling, a white person his trauma, the things we've experienced as a generation, it is human nature to be like, how did I contribute to that? Or did I contribute to that? Or like, I'm not a bad person. It's like, I wasn't saying you're a bad person. I am literally telling you about an experience that I need you to take yourself out of and watch it, or pay attention to it happening to somebody else. And I feel like that's the thing that I keep seeing in these conversations, where I'm like, and some of the conversations have, died out, because it's like, I feel like white people are like, listen, I'm tired of feeling bad every day. I'm like, yeah, Me too. We hate it. It sucks, you know? And it's not about you feeling bad. That's another thing. We have to take our ego out of this process, out of this self-awareness journey, paying attention, having love for our fellow brothers, having like understanding people's experiences. This is if you are not a person of color, you will not understand it in the same way, even close to the same way. So how could listening not be the first skill that you have? How could that not be, you know, listening, paying attention, and believing and validating? Not that we necessarily need that, but just all of the things you said is so true. And what I have noticed is I think people just hate feeling like they were a part of something that's negative. And duh. So just like stop thinking it's about you. That's nothing. It's not about you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
Sad truth, the sad reality.
Yeah. I'd also love to, again, not again, but I am not asking this because I think you represent all Black men. I definitely know you don't, but I would love to know what your conversations are like with Black men right now, because I've always wanted to ask a Black man, why is it that so many Black women experience a Black man in incredible friendships, but they don't get to experience them in incredible relationships? Like, is it possible that they're better to their friends than they are to their lovers? And if so, why? Have you had conversations about that? Are your boys being like, listen, this is what it is? You know, what is that? Yeah.
And again, so I am very big on, we can sit here and talk about, in most cases, their reaction and overlook the cause. A lot of times in life, it's like, let's say, you say you go to a park and you see two young kids, right? And you see one hit one first, and you see the other little kid pick up something and throw it back, right? Normally, the right thing to do is go to the young kid who hit first and say, hey, you can't go around hitting, right? We have been, again, programmed as a human race to go to the kid who reacted, because you might see, well, he hit you, you just went and got that big rock. You'd have this almost like, let's go to them. You went too far, so let's talk to you first, right? Not to excuse the behavior of the kid, they're both wrong, but it's like in a situation, identifying the root of things first for me has always been helpful to understand why someone is reacting the way they react. Unfortunately, even myself have struggles with this. The topic of love and Black men, to understand that, going back to when you don't see love in yourself because you've been told that love isn't there, you have not many reasons to love, it's very hard to then put that into someone else in a way that's not, because even through male on male companionship, the reason why that works is because like, oh, you're doing the same thing as me, like we have common ground because we are in the same place. So now when it comes to loving a woman or children in a way that which would be beneficial to everyone, there's conflict because of just the lack of how that's supposed to look.
Yeah.
And again, not to excuse, but it's like, I just think that there needs to be some type of, I don't know what that is yet, but there needs to be some type of unlearning of what we know and how we know to give love. Because even like you might see a grown man, a young boy might fall, and it might be painful. He hit his head or something. Quit all that crying. That is a learned behavior to tell, for another man to tell a young boy, don't cry.
Yes.
Crying is, we're human. There is no, when God created us, or however we were created, when crying was given out, it wasn't like this is a female trait. It was human, just like we bleed.
Right.
We cry. We use the bathroom. We have things that we do as human beings. So it's like a lot of those things just to unlearn. So I believe that, while there's a mountain list of things, but to me, it starts from when you look at like when we were broken down as a people, and what they did to us separately and how they broke us down and then how they turned us on. And there's no excuse. I'm just saying, I look at it like, if the conversation is still happening, we can continue to just be at the forefront or try to figure out what's the reason behind all of this.
That's the scary thing. The conversation is truly still happening. That's the crazy. I think that I'm also just being like, it's actually so hard. Like, even the fact that I just asked you this, I also saw 50 years ago, Nikki Giovanni asked James Baldwin the same thing.
Yeah.
And because as I asked it, like, I just realized, I'm like, wait, why was that a question I needed to ask? Because not only have I heard it, besides experiencing it, I've heard it. I've seen this as a question, as an inquiry of like, what is going on? What is that tug of war? And everything you're saying is very, very valid, very real, scary to go back to, because then the Black woman also has to sit with like, okay, I get why he's gotten here. I get how he's gotten here.
Then what?
Then what? How do I do I help him get out? Because at the end of the day, she's got her own thing she's got to figure out. She's got so much to figure out. We're breaking down what is manhood, what is womanhood, what are the things I put on myself? Is it that I need to look like this, be like this, stand like this, talk like this, cook like this to be the valid Black woman? And the same thing a Black man has to experience and deal with and question. So it is like a wild thing, because if we go back to the root, what happens at the root? Okay, let's say we just keep asking each other questions.
Right.
What happens? I don't know.
It's the work. And I said, I don't know what that all looks like, but it's like going to the root of it and realizing that, okay, clearly the way we were going was severely interrupted. Because if you look back to civilization, we weren't like that. Love was a thing. We were powerful. We seen the light in each other. We were kings and queens. We had gold. We were beautiful. We were it. So to strip people of that, it's like finding the core of who you are and what that work looks like. I think it all starts within individual journeys. And even that, I think so many people miss that because, again, from just a broken place, most people are in search of someone to help them get to that place. Like you often hear, oh, you complete me, or you're my better half. And when I hear that sometimes, I know the intentions are good, but when I think of it, I'm like, to even profess that someone else can be a better part of you, to me, it's almost like you do yourself a disservice. It's like, I want to get to a point where I am as full as possible. So when and if I do meet someone, right, it's like wherever they're at, we meet, we have our individual, journey in space, but it's like the kind of completion that we give each other is not to where half and half. Right. It's the bigger picture. Mm-hmm. I feed off you, you feed off me, but never I'm coming from a place of lack where you complete me. You can teach me things, you can show me things, you can inspire me to do things, but all those things have to be somewhere rooted in me in order for me to see it. And I just think like a lot of people, again, for so many reasons, just aren't willing to do that work or to see that work, or not in a place. They're not in a place to see it. Basically, what I'll say. Yeah. And again, it goes back to this shameful programming that we as a people have endured. And it's really sad. The amount of work that just has to be done. And I don't know, like I said, I just don't know, because to even move it to a different topic, I was speaking to a friend just the other night, and I had to apologize profusely. I remember a situation where I was, it's funny you say, it was actually that essence that we, in New Orleans, I noticed a friend who pulled me close and was like, hey, this guy is acting weird. I need you to like act like I'm like, you're interested in me or we're dating. I'm like, sure, cool. Like, is that all you want me to do? And she's like, yeah, I don't want it to be that, but I just need him to get the picture, leave me alone, right? And I was like, all right, cool. And then she kind of went on her business, and then I was speaking to another young lady that I just met, and I saw that same gentleman was about to confront that lady, and when he saw me again speaking to another lady, he like did his hands like, oh, like almost like this thing, like, and I noticed it, and I didn't take the time to ask her because I didn't know her that well. Didn't take the time. I was like, hey, are you okay? Like, are you also avoiding? Like I just kind of was in my silence. And that was years ago. And I spoke to her recently because that particular gentleman is now in, a lot of women have come forward to basically tell their like very, very like, just really sad stories about his behavior. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I felt a way that I'm like, hey, I know I didn't know you, I felt like I failed you in that moment, you know, like I didn't stand up for you. And she, you know, of course she was like, no, I was fine. I didn't notice it. And it made me think of the times where in my own rights, did I do enough to protect, you know, our own women? And I feel like at moments, maybe I could have done more, like even if against my own friends or, you know, and or things that I may have seen, and it's just like you just kind of keep to yourself because you kind of just taught to like sometimes, well, if it don't involve you, mind your own business, you know. In that case, and it just it put me in a place where I just felt so somewhat guilty, you know, not for his behavior, but for the fact that what would it look like if not only myself, but if more people were doing more in times of, especially when you hear like, you know, a situation that's going on now with the in the Army, the young lady that was found, like, what if someone who may have seen that would have said like, look, man, I know this might be a history that goes on around here, but let's not do that. Or who may have known that it was going down that night and maybe did something different, you know, like even changing that, like being able to speak up more and not feeling this like shamefulness or just wanting to kind of be quiet, you know, all those different things would just need to unlearn, you know. It starts from within, like I was saying.
It's such a, first of all, thank you for sharing that and really talking through that moment, because I appreciate that you called her and let her know. And I honestly wish the more, you know, just like you said, more of us would really be willing to just recognize and learn. There's nothing, it doesn't take away from our worthiness. It doesn't take away from who we are. It actually increases how much we see ourselves changing and evolving. And even the fact that you pat yourself on the back, I'm going to pat myself on the back for the fact that like, we're even having a conversation like this. I mean, 2 years ago, I'm not sure if I was I can tell I wasn't in the same place, but just to continue to be in that place of being aware, apologizing, knowing when you're wrong, knowing when it's like, okay, even being right, what does it look like to be right? Does it mean like, I'm right, you're wrong? Is it the same type of arguments? No, it's not. All of these type of things. And imagine if every person of privilege did that. Imagine if every Black man protected a Black woman, every white person protected Black people, imagine like if every parent protected a child, or every able-bodied person protects somebody with a disability. I mean, where would the world be? Like, I'm just having a moment of like, oh my goodness, you know. But yeah, I just think that I don't know. I can't lie. I've been a little emotional just really realizing how unprotected in some situations I have felt, and thinking like, oh, well, because I averted to, well, I'm strong, so I didn't need to be protected. And you find out later, it's like, but it really would have been nice. And then there's other things that me as a Black woman, as an able-bodied person, as a, you know, person who speaks English, anything could have protected somebody else. And there's just so much to that. And I think that you're right. The conditioning, the programming is beyond deep. It's not beyond repair, but it is deep. And it's very scary because it really, like so much of it worked. And I'm like, wow. And if we can just pull each other out of that, I don't know. I mean, that's where I get a little lost. I'm like, these people have been trying to play us for so long. Like,
yeah, even you saying like pull yourself out and pulling each other. Yeah. For me, what that looks like for me is transparency, especially as a Black man, and understanding my worth and value to my community through arts. You know, there's coming to that place of like even accepting that, hey, people support you, people like what you do, and understand that. Because again, it's like being, you know, this weird idea that if people like you, well, no, don't like me too much, you shouldn't, like, you know, all these different things. But coming to a place where like understanding what I mean to myself and others, and how transparency works. So I remember when I really learned that when I was able to talk about the sexual assault that I had to deal with as a child, or dealt with as a child, something that I was never comfortable, to speak about, and still to this day, it's a conversation that most can't bring themselves to have. And I remember when I took to social media to talk about how I forgive myself first, you know, and just being able to shed light on it. So many men in private reached out to me that didn't even know me. A lot of their first sentence was, hey, I don't know you. I've never said this to anybody, but thank you, or I appreciate you bringing it up. I don't know how to say. And I'm like, I didn't know how to say either. It's just getting to a point where realizing that this doesn't define me, because somewhere along the way, in the weirdest thing, I guess in our minds, we've been trained that for whatever shortcomings that this adult has done that has failed me as a child, because I was supposed to be in their care, somewhere along that happened to me. I guess we were shown that as men, that there's some kind of homosexuality trait attribute to that. It's mind blowing. It's like, wait a minute, here you have a young kid who's being a kid, an adult who has a more mature mind, failed this individual and did something to him, and you have somehow made the victim feel like that he is wrong, or that it's like, why would I feel that? Like, I know who I am at my core. I was a child. Like, I can't put that on. And there's so many people who are hiding behind this particular thing because of what the world told them. Oh, nah, son, you gay. That happened to you. It's like, huh? But and even if you are, it doesn't mean it's because of that. Like,
right, exactly.
Like, and again, unlearning the programming that it just goes so deep. And I remember coming to, because I also thought that this is probably what people are going to think. And even furthermore, because I associated that act with, I guess homosexuality and my misunderstanding of it, hate is a strong word.
Yeah.
But as a young man, I thought I told myself I hated people who are homosexual, because I thought that's what that was. Yeah. Not realizing that, that's a whole nother conversation. But to me, the two things had nothing, in that particular case, had nothing to do with it. And then furthermore, with my situation, thank God that I was never a victim of like sodomy or anything, because that's even a deeper trauma that I can't really speak on for those individuals who's experienced that, because I know that comes with a deeper pain and a deeper level to overcome. For my situation, it's just very inappropriate behavior, things that kids shouldn't be exposed to at that age, or you shouldn't be doing that around kids, or touching them in that way, or showing them things. Two women were involved in my situation too, so you have to think of then, as a man, how does that play when you are heterosexual and two women at a very young age did these things to you, and you realize it took me, I didn't even know that the traumas that I dealt with from that, because again, you thinking, well, I'm a man, I like women, so those things don't bother me. Those are two women, right? Your naivety, or just like your ignorance, you think that there's no, issue with that, till one day, being in a relationship and kind of like playfully play fighting, I was basically held really tight, like where she had a grip. And it took me to that moment, the first time I ever went back to that moment where this lady used to basically tie me up in a way. And I realized that this is the trauma from that, how it's showing up in my adult life. Suppressing it for so many years, thinking that they would have no effect, not realizing that this is why you don't like to be held down or held too tight or restrained in any way. This is what it stems from. And you're like, oh man, I have to work through that. And you're just not knowing. So again, those conversations that most people, just not ready to have, or for whatever reasons, but I encourage, I don't know where or how, maybe like, again, in the mirror or to yourself, or writing it down. But I learned that holding those things in, for me, has just been a world of destruction for my internal good. And it has spilled out, because until I was able to get over those things, to get through those things, I wasn't able to love fully myself or others. I wasn't able to be present enough for myself and others. And just the light and how light I feel that I'm able to get that weight off.
Right.
It's a tremendous, sorry, I get a little choked up, but it's just tremendous feeling.
Oh, yeah.
But like I said, I encourage, and especially women go through too, but I encourage men, because I think and know that it happens far more than we think.
Yes.
And then even going to those individuals who commit these very, very sad crimes and actions, and just to realize, like, I'm at a place where, again, going to the root, what would make someone, and not excusing their behavior, please don't get it confused with me pacifying or excusing the wrong that they're doing, but just to understand, to me, I want to go deeper. And when you go deeper, you realize this is a pattern. Sometimes it's a situation where it happened to them, or they weren't loved properly. So you just have these like really, really, really tumultuous, like bad cycles that are happening within a community. And then you get to a place where, let's just say, like, I meet you, and it's like, okay, on the outside, we like, okay, we feel this. Now we're together, and then now we have to face the things that are holding on inside. And it's like these really ugly truths. Yeah. So much that when you hear it, it's like, I'm not dealing with that. And I'm a victim of that. I've definitely been told that, like, oh, you don't know how to fight. And I will raise my hand and say, you're right. I have not been able to conquer that. And seeing that this individual is hurt and going through their thing, and the minute that it shows up, for me to like stay in it because of the things that I'm dealing with.
But specify that a little bit, because I don't want it to be, you don't know how to fight, like you don't know how to show up in a relationship, or you don't know how to defend. Can you get a little more specific?
Yeah, so more so is those things, yes, I worked on that, and I've been understanding and open to those things. But for me, let's just say if the thing continues to show up over and over again, and I guess for me, feeling that there's a certain type of lack of work, because then again, it's like, well, I shouldn't be putting how much work one should be doing. Mm-hmm. But then again, I'm like, is there any work being done? And like, how much, then I have to like ask myself, how much of this am I willing to endure? Right. You know, like, could I really be present fully while this person unpacks this, you know, truth of theirs? And what does that do for me and my trauma? And again, there's been times where I'm like, I just don't think I can do it because of the work that I'm still doing. Right. Nothing against that individual, or individuals that have times that I've done that, but that's just the truth of it. It hurts sometimes because you want to be able to, I guess in their words, fight. But some individuals, like speaking for myself, there's certain things that I just don't have the fight in me in those particular aspects. Yeah. Protect you, yes. Push you to your dreams, to inspire you, I will fight for that. When I see that maybe you're at a place in your life where you're not understanding the self-journey in it, and you're more so relying on others, I might have to step back from that, because I think that in the long run, you might appreciate this. Maybe now you may not see it, because a lot of times too, staying in it and doing those things, you're just enabling.
Yeah.
You don't realize that.
That's hard, because you really don't. Yeah. It's like, okay, so now I'm enabling. Like, sometimes I'm supporting, sometimes I'm enabling, sometimes I'm not paying. You know, it's all of those things. It could be all of those things. Oh, dang.
And if you said now, you know, not to cut you, but it's like, think about this even further. 'Cause, you know, I'm single, and with all that's happening now, on top of what has happened before, what would dating even look like in the next few months when we're even able to court? Because to me, virtual courting is one thing, but there's nothing that will ever compare to actual physical connection and energy. And like, what does that look like, you know, on top of those traumas? And it's like, I feel like now is the best time for you to do the self-work, because to think about even getting a relationship or meeting someone now, you have to understand, like, okay, is this just a sigh of relief that I can, like, oh my God, somebody's here, save me? Or is it like, I'm at a place where I know where I'm at. This person seems to be at a good place and know where they're at. We can build, you know, we can really build. And I think a lot of times it's more so oh my God, somebody's here. Let me just jump in.
It doesn't even feel fun though. Like, in this state of where we are, I feel you, because most times it is that, or it can be that. But in this state, if we're all having this global consciousness that we are having, it would not feel fun to be like, oh, okay, take this away. It's like, I want to have a conversation. I want to talk. I want to talk through like, so what you've been learning, what you've been discovering, what's going on. It cannot be back to the movies and let's go shopping and match at the mall. It just doesn't work anymore. That also left with coronavirus. Like, no, I don't know. I mean, I don't personally see us going that, but maybe that's just you and I having this conversation. Other people are like, yeah, that's what we're about to do. I don't know.
Because also too, you miss that, you know, a part of you is like, it's a safe haven. And right now we're so unsafe. You're just looking for that safe thing. So it's like, wow, this person just thinks, you know, maybe they're focused on the physical attributes, and I'll take it. Cause it's like, imagine you being beaten up every day. Your heart is being punched and kicked. Sometimes you just surrender. So it's like, but again, it's that cycle that continues to happen. Cause okay, you surrender, then 6 months in, something finally shows up. And it's like, well, how are you going to deal with it now? Because you literally been sweeping this thing under the rug for 6 months, you know, and now we're at this place. How do we deal with it? You know, it's tough. I don't have the answers. I don't know what to do or how that looks. I'm not saying not do it. I'm not saying do it. I don't know.
We're just talking it out. We're just trying to figure it out. Like,
I'm conscious of it. Yeah. And I think that's important because you got to realize that maybe some people aren't talking or even thinking about it in that way.
I agree.
You know?
I agree for sure. And I think like I'm hoping, I mean, I was going to say, I assume we're all conscious of it, but that might not be true. But I do think it's so important for us to just, again, because this is a hard conversation to have. We just want to say dating is dating and keep it moving and keep it chill. We do want to keep everything, you know, it's not fun to have everything be a thing, but low key, everything is a thing because this is life. And life is an entire thing. So, you know, there's the fun, easy parts to it. But I think those parts become breezy when you do this work, when you pay attention, when you really get down to the nitty gritty, because then the laughs are just louder and they're purer and they're just, you know where they come from. You know, they're not like, oh, I'm guessing because I'm not sure. I don't know. That's just me. That's kind of what I'm like also discovering and staying in it, because that's also what I'm excited about. I'm excited for the purity of knowing that like, on the other side of the work is just like, I don't want to say there's peace, because I think that's also part of the work, finding peace within everything. But I don't know, something on the other side.
There's peace on the other side. It's a whole different piece. It's this piece isn't just a place, you know. It's a whole other. And like I said, I've come in and out of those feelings, and you realize it's almost like this. So like, say you have your way of cooking, right? I keep going back to that, but you have your way of cooking and you go to this restaurant and you're like, oh, I didn't know rice could taste like this, because you just knew rice to be this thing. And you're like, wow, like this is, for me, peace and happiness, while there is a inner peace, happiness, but on the other side of the work, it's like, oh, this is peace too. Like, you know, there's a feeling, outside feeling around it as well. There's a inner, but then there's also this like exponential, like, feeling of this peace, energy, and happiness that you're like, oh my God, like this is what it looks like on the outside. But again, I don't think you get to that, because you have to know you have to identify first. Like I say, a lot of people, when people say to me like, wow, man, you know, you have this thing, or you're just this, you're just that. And I'm like, you know, what's the beauty in that is that you wouldn't be able to identify the things in me if it wasn't in you. Like you wouldn't be like, it would be foreign. We don't know the things that we don't know. So if I can say to you like, wow, you're beautiful, that's because I understand what beauty is. I might not have gotten to the point where I see it in me, but the first step in realizing to call something beautiful is that you have to know the definition of it. You have to be able to know what it is to identify it in someone else. So that's the first part. So then you take that, well, what is it that I identify with her or in this individual? And it's not just always going to be physical. And then see how I can apply it to myself, where I can get to that in the most positive, safe way. And you just break it down that way. You know what I mean? You have to be able to identify these things in order to, you know, call it out.
I love that. That's so good. And I hope we really that's another moment where I feel like, again, as humans, if we give ourselves those pat on the backs, those grace moments, those like, hey, you recognize it. That's the first step. You identified it. Now we continue the work of applying it and, you know, sitting in it and staying in it, and then like blossoming from that place. So I love that. That was really dope. Before we end, I want to ask you one last question. Well, I know. These people gonna be like, I'm looking.
Conversation. I'm like, what?
I know. Listen. Honestly, I'm about to talk. I'm like, okay, we moving us to the phone. Sorry, y'all. Because we could really go on. Honestly, we need to do a live summit. I'm picturing it in my head. I'm like, okay, so live Iran. Yeah. Because it's like I'm picking my friends, not necessarily just my friends, but I'm picking people that I just see that light in, that light that needs to be like everyone needs to experience it, because you are also we're in this moment. I feel like we're helping people find their own light, and that's what I'm believing. That's what I'm praying. That's what I'm
also finding ours.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. Remember, we are the light. Remember that video we did? We were like, we don't know where the light is, but we are the light. My favorites.
Yes,
my favorites. So good. But yeah, so one of the last questions I wanted to ask you was, what was the last thing you forgave yourself for the first time?
Wow. Sorry. Because it was recent. So I keep talking about my parents, and they mean a lot to me. I basically, I don't know what it was, but somewhere in there, the loss of them, just, I guess, my own mental, there was a certain type of blame of, maybe if I was better, they'll still be here, because I'd be like worthy of them still being here or something. So I know death kind of can cause you to do, makes you think certain things. And for me, just coming to a place of just saying, Ron, that's not true. Like, you had no control over that. It had nothing to do with you. Think about the life that you were able to experience while they were here. That's where your focus should be. That is the joy of what they were able to provide for you, the experiences that they offered to you, the life, the love. You had nothing to do with that. Like, even if you were the scholar or the big, I don't know, like, nothing would change the outcome of that. They lived their life, their time, their stamp on life was already written. That's how it played out, whether you were going to be, this thing that you thought you were going to be or not. And I had to just come to terms and basically forgive myself for the mental and, in some cases, physical abuse that I put on myself for that. It did happen at a very young age, and not really knowing how to navigate through that definitely came with a lot of lessons still to this day. But with that forgiveness, how I am able to see them and hear them through the various spaces that I travel in nature, through God's creations, through animals, butterflies, the clouds, through people. They show up so beautifully now that I'm able to let go of some of those things that I guess negatively held on to. And it's like what I thought of them before, how I see them now, and it's like, to me, still like 10 times the most beautiful entities I've ever was able to and it's not to even be like to make this thing, but you see that plant behind you, it's been catching my eye this entire time, because when I think of plants, I think of my mom. I see her because of the plant life that she had growing around, and it makes me smile, So to round out that question, sorry to get emotional. No, I'm not sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no, please don't apologize.
I'm not sorry.
No, please don't apologize.
Yeah, I just had to come to a place of forgiveness, and with that, not knowing that with that forgiveness, the light on the other side of that, how beautifully I'm able to see them show up for me in ways, it's just, I wish there was a way to, and maybe there's not, maybe it is a self-absorbed eternal thing that's supposed to be for me. But if I could show it, if there was a way where I would be able to share what that looks like and feels like, I would do it in a heartbeat. Or maybe I'm the product of that. Maybe I am what that looks like. And there's, when we first got on the phone, you said you see something. Wow, you see something in me. Maybe it's that. You know, maybe it's those things. I don't try to act like I know everything, because I don't. I learn things. So maybe it's that. But thank you for asking that. I don't think I've ever put it into words, or I know no one's ever asked me that. I never thought about it that way. But I'm happy that you created this particular platform today for me to share that, for the healing that it's continuing to do. So I thank you for that.
And thank you for stepping into that. I really appreciate that, because as you were healing, I was able to be a part of that with you, and that was an incredible experience. So thank you for like just being open. That was, I just like, God, I know that anyone who's watching has, I hope they have this appreciation for your parents that I personally am sitting with right now, because I'm like, you created this wonderful person. Like, they really did that. And you are definitely the light that is shining still from their experiences throughout, you know, like you're still such a light bulb and a flashlight and all those things of their lives. And so that's really, really awesome. So thank you for sharing that.
Can I ask a favor of you before we go?
Yes. Unless it's crazy. No, I'm kidding.
I want you to close your eyes.
Okay.
Right? And do like this. Right? Close your eyes. And I just want you to feel me hugging you as I want to feel you hugging me. Because your hugs mean a lot to me throughout friendship. Your embrace is definitely a healing space, and thank you for providing that. But I just wanted to take this moment to feel that, and I'm going to just be quiet for 3 seconds as we just stay in that space and feel that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh my
Love
God.
you.
I love you so much. That was okay. I need to come back to LA. I need to see my friends. Like, oh my gosh. Wow. Ron, I feel so loved. You're so loved. You're so loved. You're so needed. Dude, you're so needed. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Guys, I hope in the middle somewhere you ran and got a journal so you could just, or voice recorder, or, you know, it's on YouTube. Rewatch it. Send it to all your friends. Watch it again. Learn, love, you know, have a moment with your friends. Share something real. Like, this was such a blessing. Thank you, Ron. Thank you for being a part of Human to Human. You're like one of my favorients. So
thank you. And that title, Human to Human, is like so needed, it's so necessary, it's so like powerful. Human to human connection, like I was saying, no cliche, is like nothing can compare to it. Nothing can compare to it. Technology can try their best to simulate whatever, you know, and some of those things might fulfill a certain thing, but nothing will ever, like how you even just said, I need to get back to LA to be around.
Yes.
This does a thing, but there's nothing like presence and energy. This cannot, for some reason, translate the physical energy that we would provide for each other, that exudes off our bodies, the radiation, you know, that we give. There's limits to it through technology. We appreciate it, you know, but we understand the deeper connection that's in the reality of being face to face, you know. So I appreciate you too.
Yeah, so good. Oh my God. I don't even know how to end this. Bye, y'all. It's like, I don't even know how to end, because I'm so just like, I'm so excited for, again, the experience that hopefully everyone has while watching and while growing together, because the whole point of Human to Human was really to relate to each other in such a deeper connection of curiosity, and to build a community of really realizing like these flaws and these things that we think we're the only ones dealing with, and these struggles and these things that we don't let ourselves like breathe into. I just wanted to share that there's other humans around you dealing the same thing. So yeah. Thank you guys for watching, and can't wait for another episode.
Appreciate you guys watching. Love and light to you all, everyone that joined this or took away anything from it. Love and light to you for it.